I don't know what to think anymore about some of these guys that I personally grew up watching. You know, not necessarily legends, because the person I'm talking about is not really, he didn't win a whole bunch when he was in the Cup Series in NASCAR, but people that I looked up to when I was a kid, growing up. And I'm talking about Kyle Petty. And Kyle got on social media, or on a podcast or something yesterday, or at least it was published yesterday. I don't know exactly when he got on it, but regardless. And he was talking about the fact that everyone is being too hard on the next gen race car. Saying that it's going to take time to get to where that car needs to be and all this sort kind of stuff. And number one, how long is it supposed to take? Because we're 3 years into this car now, and it's still just as bad as it was when they first started with it. Nothing's changed. NASCAR has shown very little interest in making the car better. Every time people start to complain about it, they try to distract us with nonsense about the tracks, the circuits, or whatever. Just blatant distractions. So they have no interest in fixing it. You have a situation now where the ARCA cars are faster than the Cup Series, which is ridiculous on a bunch of different levels. But then you have Kyle coming out and advocating for the sanctioning body, telling everybody to give him a break, essentially. Now, like I said, I love Kyle. I'm a huge fan. But, man, starting to sound bought and paid for. And I'm struggling to think of the last time that I heard him say anything critical of the sanctioning body. He's on their payroll, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure he is. And, I don't question the man's integrity or anything like that. So I don't want to say that he's bought and paid for it. It's starting to sound that way. And it's just yet another case. Now you finally have Dale Jr. coming around and saying things critically, publicly. But for the most part, these guys they refuse to say anything. They don't want to lose that gravy train. And it's frustrating. And that's what makes everyone gravitate that much more to Mark Martin. Mark is not afraid to say what needs to be said. He's not beholden to NASCAR or anybody else. He's going to say what he thinks needs to be said, and if you don't agree with it, that's fine. Not the end of the world. But he's going to tell you how it is, and that's, if you look at the following that Mark has, I would argue that the following that he has now is bigger than what it was when he was driving. I know from my perspective, I didn't not like Mark Martin when I was a kid. I was just never like a massive fan of Mark. My grandmother was, my grandfather was. I was a Petty fan all day. And, I pulled for Adam, then I pulled for Kyle, and then I pulled for the rest of the Petty Enterprises team. But now I am a staunch Mark Martin fan. And, I'll back the guy up any day of the week, because I agree with everything that he says, and I appreciate him being the voice of the fans who are being ignored by the sanctioning body and people like Kyle Petty. It's just ridiculous, and I hate seeing it happen yet again to another guy who I had a lot of respect for. I still have a lot of respect for, but I just hate seeing it go down that way. And by the way, I just want to say this, because he mentioned that NASCAR has been proactive in pretty much everything since 2001, since February 2001. I've got to say this. It's been said before, and every time it gets brought up, I'll keep saying it, and I will beat it into the ground. NASCAR did nothing after Dale was killed in February of 2001. They did not implement anything. The head and neck restraints were not implemented until Blaze was killed in October in an ARCA race at Charlotte. That's when NASCAR finally got the lead out and did what needed to be done, and we haven't had a death in the sport since. So, come close, but we haven't had one since. And I don't mind people giving Dale some credit, but, I think it was a combination of all those guys that passed away from 2000 into 2001. But the fact remains that nothing was done until Blaze was killed in October in ARCA race at Charlotte. That's when the ball finally started getting rolling on making safety changes. So, anyways, if you enjoy listening to me ramble about motorsports, cars, or anything else I feel like talking about, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and turn on notifications. If you're interested in diecast cars, t-shirts, hats, auto parts, anything like that, check out our eBay. The link is in the description. Also follow us on Facebook and X. Those links are also in the description. I post all kinds of motorsports content throughout the day on both of those. So without further ado, let's get into the rest of the video. And speaking of how awful that car is, they're racing at Watkins Glen Sunday. I went back and watched the highlight reel, and I gotta say it was a boring race. A boring race. I didn't watch it live because the Canadian NASCAR Series was on. They were racing on a street course, road course, street course, tomato, tomato. The only difference between a road course and a street course, you have runoff on a road course. You don't have any runoff ordinarily on a street course. But I gotta say, the Canadian Series put on one heck of a show, man. It was a really, really good race. They were passing each other left and right. They were able to get to the back bumper of the cars in front of them. And it was a good race. It was fun to watch. But the Cup Series, which is supposed to be the top series, the top step, it's like watching paint dry. And I don't understand why we're still in this spot and why this has to keep being a topic of conversation time and time again. 3 years down the road and we still can't figure this car out. And then there's been no move from NASCAR to actually do something about it. And at least publicly, they've not really done anything, and it's frustrating. We get Elton Sawyer comes out, I think it was late last week or over the weekend, and he said that we're looking at adding horsepower, but it's going to be 2026 at the earliest, and it's going to be short tracks. Like, dude, come on. It just needs to be everywhere. And that's a good start. That's not going to fix all the problems with that car, not by a long shot. It'll help a little, but the aero issues, in my opinion, are the main issue with that car. And that needs to be addressed first and foremost, in my personal opinion. And another thing with the next gen I was thinking about earlier too is we have the single lug nut layout on those cars now. Dale Jr. was talking about it. He said that he thinks that needs to go away. I agree. I think it's stupid. I've never understood this single lug nut thing in any form of racing, because there's no street cars riding around with a single lug, unless it's some high-end sports car, some Ferrari or something like that. I have not seen a single lug car in my lifetime on the road in person, period. And I've never understood the push to go to that, but since NASCAR has gone that direction, why are we still doing pit stops the same way that we've been doing pit stops? It makes no sense. Like, why have we not changed if we're going to fall in line with all the other motorsports categories out there, which is what they did with that single lug. That was to bring them more in line with something like IMSA. Why are we still doing pit stops like archaic? Why do we not have the guys set up like Formula One or like supercars, where the guys are set up on all four corners? When the car pulls in, they change the tires, drop the car, boom. Why do we have jackmen? Why don't we have air jacks like everyone else does? It's a lot of these things they don't make sense to me. And I also got to thinking that we've got this push with the Cup car to bring it more modern, with EFI and with all these other things with diffuser and all that kind of stuff. Why have we not done anything with the Xfinity Series to bring it more in line with modern times? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I believe those cars are still carbureted. Why? I could be wrong on that. If I am, whatever, but everything else is still basically the same as what it was in 2011 when that car was introduced. So I don't get it. Similar deal with the truck series. We're not really doing anything other than the Elmore engines, which I think is I understand it's a cost-cutting thing, but it's such a joke that everyone runs the same engine. I hate that. you know, I guess, like I said, it's beneficial, but from a hardcore racing fan's perspective, I think it's just terrible. Terrible. Also, I wanted to throw this out there. I think we're going to frame a picture of Connor Zilisch mid-fall from the roof of his car, and I'm going to send it to Dale Jr. And you know, they need to put, if I ran the place, which, you know, I don't, but if I ran the place, I would totally put that front and center when you walk into the garage. Boom, Connor Zilisch mid-fall, since he's basically all right. You know, if he was seriously hurt, obviously not, but since he's basically okay, I mean, a broken collarbone, that'll heal pretty quick. Hopefully it does. But I think that's something they need to do for sure. There's a rumor on the street that IndyCar, now that Fox is a part of IndyCar, you know, Fox bought stake in IndyCar, that there could be playoffs coming down the line, because there's what, 2 races left, and Alex Palou is already champion. And, you know, I just want to say this, IndyCar, come on. Do not do what NASCAR has done to themselves. You know, the argument that I make, and I want someone to answer me with like a legitimate answer, and I can never get one out of anybody, which is, in what way have the playoffs moved the needle in a positive direction for NASCAR? In what way? I legitimately want to know. Because from what I've seen is, you can try to blame it on whatever you want to, but it doesn't change the fact that since the playoffs have been in place, and I'm talking all the way back to 2004, it's another thing that drives me nuts when people say, well, the chase and the playoffs are 2 separate things. No, it's all the same thing. It's all playoffs. They just had a different name. You go all the way back. You had the honeymoon period after 2003 up until about 2005, 2006. And that's the case with anything new. There's going to be a honeymoon period where people hang around, start watching, what have you. Then it started to tank, and it started to fall off a cliff. And to the point where it is now, where the numbers are basically stagnant, you know, what an average 2 million people watch per race on average, which is, you know, no bad number by any stretch of the imagination, unless you compare it to the numbers that NASCAR used to have. And then it's not very good. You know, NASCAR was trending to where they could compete with the NFL. That fell apart, you know, because of all the gimmicks. And, you know, it's just, I just don't see how incorporating it into IndyCar is going to help anything. I don't think there's anything in IndyCar that needs to be helped as far as the championship is concerned. If a guy wins, you know, a ton of races and walks away from everybody in the championship and wraps it up with 2 races left, there's still 2 races left. So you're going to tell me that they're not worth watching, and what, everybody's just going to not show up? No one's going to race. It's just going to be putt-putting around the racetrack? No. These guys are going to be going for race wins. It's still going to be fun to watch. This is how it used to be in NASCAR before the playoffs. You know, now playoffs, the races just kind of seem like, you know, they're important, but they're important from a standpoint of playoff berth and a playoff advancement. You know, you've got guys winning the Daytona 500, and the first thing they're getting asked when they get out of the race car is how this changes the rest of their season because of the playoffs. It's not the way that it should be, and it used to not be that way. And it's not that way in IndyCar. That will change in a heartbeat with playoffs. You know, Supercars has incorporated finals this season. It's not a secret. Everybody knows that. But it's interesting to me that they haven't really pushed it as far as advertising, stuff like that goes. The commentators, Mark Scaife and Neil, they've talked about it, but very little. You know, it's not been a focal point. I don't think that those guys, I think if you ask them behind the scenes, both of Scaife and Neil, they used to be race car drivers. So I'm sure they probably are not on board with this playoff finals or what have you. But now they're also in a situation where Brock Feeney's winning every race, basically. So unless something crazy happens, those Triple 8 cars are so much faster than everybody else. He's going to win the championship this year. So what's the point of finals? What's the point of playoffs if it's just going to end the same way that it would end otherwise? It's ridiculous to me. There's no point. It's artificial. You're creating gimmicky nonsense where there shouldn't be. And the universal reception from all the fans, at least from what I've seen with supercars, is no one wants it. No one asked for it. And that's another thing that happens in NASCAR with their playoffs. Every season, at the end of the year, it creates controversy around drivers, crews, fans. Everyone's split right down the middle. That shouldn't be how we decide a champion. If it's going to divide everyone and there's going to be arguing and fighting and controversy over who actually won the championship. There was a lot of that last year with Joey Logano when he had, a 15th place average finish and won the championship. He had no business being champion. I'm sorry, I hate to say it, nothing against Joey, but he had no business being champion. That's a similar thing that's going to happen in IndyCar, and I don't see how it's just not going to move the needle in a positive direction. I knew when Fox signed up to buy shares in the company that it was probably going to end up going this way. And they haven't formally announced anything, but when we get to a point where reporters are openly asking drivers about it, which is what happened this past weekend, it's just a matter of time. It's coming. And this whole universal push anyways across the industry for everyone to have playoffs, I just don't get what they're seeing that I'm not seeing. I don't know. I don't know what numbers they're looking at. They must have some kind of information that I don't, because I just don't understand everyone. I mean, you've got NASCAR now, supercars, supercross, drag racing, NHRA. Which NHRA, it makes more sense than any of the other ones since you're head to head. But irregardless, I have a personal issue with any kind of playoff format in motorsports. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Let's keep our fingers crossed on that one. We'll see. Anyways, if you found this interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, turn on notifications. The works. If you're interested in diecast cars, t-shirts, hats, auto parts, anything else, make sure to check out our eBay. The link is in the description. Also follow us on Facebook and X for more motorsports content. Till next time, God bless. See you guys. Peace.